Hi everybody, welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Tiffany.
Okay, today we're talking about an article titled Locked Up, Chiayi's Prison Museum. Okay, it's a prison and a museum. So before we get started on that, let's think, do we enjoy visiting historic landmarks? I mean, yes, absolutely.
I'm a huge, nerd for that.
Okay, yeah. Well, so when you were in London, you must have seen all sorts of old historic landmarks.
Kind of. I think for me, I didn't really use it to my advantage, to be honest.
Okay.
But then I do, for example, if I travel, I like to look at the historic landmarks. I like to read a little bit of the city's history. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me.
Did you go to the Tower of London?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that, of course, is both a prison and a museum, and it's basically a castle as well. So it's kind of all sorts of fun you can have visiting there. So there's this place in Chiayi called Chiayi's Prison Museum. I guess it sounds like the place on Green Island, which I've never been to, but I've heard it's pretty interesting. So let's find out about Chiayi's Prison Museum by reading through today's article.
Reading. Locked Up, Chiayi's Prison Museum. You approach the low white entrance with barbed wire to the left and right of it. Then you see a prisoner in striped clothing hanging from the wall. Don't worry, it's not a real person. Beyond the walls is a real prison, though. It's the Chiayi Prison Museum. Walk into the prison and you'll be greeted by a number of Japanese-style buildings. Slowly, you'll start to get a feel for life behind bars in Chiayi's old prison. You'll see the warden's room and the room where prisoners spoke with family from behind glass. Move along and you'll see self-made tools used for tattoos that prisoners gave each other. The Chiayi prison was opened in 1922, and it was turned into a historic spot in 2005. To get there, you can walk from Bayman Station on the Alishan Forest Railway. It's the mix of beautiful buildings and a painful past that makes it a spot worth visiting while in Chiayi.
All right, the article first starts with, you approach the low white entrance with barbed wire to the left and right of it. So we're kind of setting up the scenery right here. So imagine yourself approaching this place, and while you're walking there, you see these barbed wires, and it's kind of, I think, a little bit like a scary feeling to it.
Yeah. A low white entrance. So, something that's kind of small and plain, not like a big fancy gate.
Yeah, you don't feel like, oh, I'm so excited. This is actually a sense of feeling like you're scared.
First of all, we need to look at the word entrance, right? Okay, an entrance, it's an opening. It leads to somewhere. So it can be a door or a gate or some kind of passage or tunnel into something. Okay, so in this case, we're probably thinking about a door, but since it's a prison, it's going to be maybe it's going to have old locks and maybe bars and stuff like that over it. Here's another example of entrance or way in. You must buy a ticket at the entrance before entering the museum. So you can see how entrance relates to the verb enter as the sort of way in. Now, this entrance has barbed wire to the left and right.
Yeah, barbed wire is, you can sometimes call it barbed wire with no ED.
That's right.
And it's basically thick metal wire with sharp points every few centimeters, where the sharp ends of the wire are twisted together. So it's like twisted wire, but you have really, really sharp, pointy things sticking out. And it's used to stop people or things getting into or out of somewhere.
That's right. It's related to, there's also razor wire, which also has these almost small, like razor blades every few centimeters. And you'll see these in like army bases or on top of walls to stop people climbing over them, or on even on fields to stop animals from kind of breaking out of the fields, because the barbed wire won't cause them too much harm, but it'll give them just a little poke and they'll be like, okay, not going out here.
My school had barbed wire on top.
You went to a very strict school.
I know. It was a Catholic school.
They did not want you to get out.
No.
Okay. All right. The article then continues with this description of the entrance to the prison. It says, then you see a prisoner in striped clothing hanging from the wall. Okay, that's a little disturbing. A prisoner, P-R-I-S-O-N-E-R, prisoner, and that is a person who is being held in prison as punishment for committing a crime. You can also use it just to talk about a person who's held in a place where they can't get out, okay? Here's an example sentence. The prisoners are allowed to leave their cells for a few hours each day, maybe to exercise, get some fresh air, and so on. But most of the time, they have to stay in there.
Yeah. Usually, prisoners, they wear striped clothing. Okay, when something is striped or it has stripes, it's a type of pattern with horizontal lines. I think it's actually quite in fashion now. You see a lot of clothes with horizontal lines or stripes.
They could be vertical lines as well, I guess. Horizontal is kind of going left to right. Vertical is up and down. Yeah, I do see a lot of people actually in the A+ office upstairs. A lot of people are wearing, often wearing striped clothing, horizontal stripes.
Clothing here is our vocabulary word as well. C-L-O-T-H-I-N-G. It's a noun and it basically means clothes. So when we use clothing, we are talking about clothes as a whole category.
So here it means all his clothes are striped, the pants, the shirt, and whatever. And a lot prisoners are often wearing this kind of stuff because it identifies them as prisoners. It's like a uniform, so that if they somehow get out, people go, wait a minute, you're in striped clothing, you're a criminal. Okay, now when we said this prisoner is hanging from the wall. Now, we could mean he's holding on with his hands and fingers to the top of the wall, but in this case, the person is probably hanging with a rope around his neck. Now, people used to be hanged as a punishment for a really bad crime, like murder. Now, notice that when we use the verb hang to talk about a person being punished, the past tense is hanged with ed, hanged, H-A-N-G-E-D. But when we use the verb for hanging things up, like hang up your clothes, the past tense is hung, H-U-N-G. So, important distinction there, depending on what we're using the word hang to mean.
That's actually a really good tip. So don't use the wrong past tense.
Exactly, yeah. Think about why we're using the verb hang, what are we using it for? Anyway, back to our article about this hanged man. It says, don't worry. It's not a real person. So this prisoner in his striped clothing is not real. It's a dummy or something like that. However, the article also adds, beyond the walls is a real prison, though. So this isn't just a museum. This was really a prison in the past. I don't think it still is. I think it's just a museum now, but it was and could still be, I guess, if they opened up the cells again, a real prison.
Yep. And the article says it's the Jiayi Prison Museum.
Okay, so it's a museum, of course, is a place where you go and learn things, often historical things, but you could also have an art museum. So the article continues with this tour that we're taking. It says, walk into the prison and you'll be greeted by a number of Japanese-style buildings. So Japanese style means they were kind of made like Japanese architecture, so maybe this was built when the Japanese were in control of Taiwan.
Yeah, could be. The article then says, slowly you'll start to get a feel for life behind bars in Jiayi's old prison. Okay, so the purpose of letting people come here is to get a feel for what it is like to probably be in prison without committing any crime.
Yeah, I don't want that.
So to get a feel for it just means to have a better understanding of something. But let's take a look at our shortcut for you to learn more about this phrase.
Shortcut for you.
Aaron, why are you sitting on their motorcycle and making those noises?
I am getting a feel for the motorcycle. I've decided I want to buy one for myself.
Just feeling the bike under your body and making strange drone noises isn't a very good way to decide that you want to buy a bike.
Duh, of course not. I put more thought into it than that, silly. To get a feel for something actually means that you're developing a good knowledge or understanding of something.
Oh, so get a feel for something doesn't mean that you're feeling the bike with your hands or body. It actually means 搞清楚. So, the run noise, do they help you understand the bike better?
Well, no, not really, but they're just so fun to make. Vroom, 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 vroom.
Hi guys, welcome back. So that's how to get a feel for something. Okay, we also use the phrase behind bars, life behind bars. And behind bars is used to mean in prison, as most older prisons and some modern ones have bars on the doors and windows to stop people getting in or out. For example, we could say the criminal was put behind bars for life. Okay, means he was put in jail or prison. Okay, the article carries on with this tour that we're taking of the Jiayi Museum. Okay, it says you'll see the warden's room and the room where prisoners spoke with family from behind glass. So they couldn't just talk to them, they had to stay on one side of a window. Now, we also saw the word warden here, W-A-R-D-E-N. A warden is a prison officer. It's often used these days to mean the governor or the controller of a prison. And a warden could also be a person who is responsible for looking after a place to make sure that all the rules are followed. So an area of the country might have a warden. In the old days, people were given the title of warden. It meant they protected that area and made sure the laws were followed.
Right. Next, the article says, move along and you'll see self-made tools used for tattoos that prisoners gave each other. That's pretty fun.
Interesting. So self-made means they weren't real tools they bought. These they made themselves so they could tattoo themselves, which sounds a little dangerous.
A little bit.
You go.
You might get diseases, but a tattoo is basically a mark or design that you permanently put on the skin with ink.
Yep, like the ones on my legs.
Yeah.
I've got quite a few. You don't have any? Or if so, I've never seen them.
I've thought about getting one, but then I'm always scared. Like, I'm not sure what I should get. So people just tell me, don't get it then.
Yeah, if you're not sure, it's best not to.
Yeah.
Okay. The tour, or we're kind of going now into the history. The tour's sort of over for the moment. The article says the Jiayi prison was opened in 1922 and it was turned into a historic spot in 2005 or 2005. You don't always need to say the and, you can just say 2005.
The article then says, to get there, you can walk from Beiman Station on the Alishan Forest Railway. So it sounds like it's a nice day trip as well. Like you can go to this place, look at some scenery, visit a prison.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they wouldn't have the prison too close to the town because they want to take the prisoners away from the town in case there was some kind of escape.
A breakout.
Exactly. The article then says why we should visit it. It says it's the mix of beautiful buildings and a painful past that makes it a spot worth visiting while in Jiayi. So here, it is kind of, we call this like a dummy pronoun. The it is the thing that makes, if you sort of understand what I mean. There'll be more explanation of that kind of false pronoun in the grammar section of our article. We're going to look at the word mix, M-I-X, and here it's a noun, short for the word mixture, meaning two or more things, people, qualities, and so on, combined and considered together. For example, this movie shows a mix of action and comedy.
Right. So they said it's a mix of beautiful buildings because remember, it's a little bit more of, we see a lot of the Japanese influence in these buildings.
It's interesting that you'd have a prison with beautiful buildings, isn't it? You'd imagine
usually
that it's going to be a very block-like, kind of square, horrible, sort of uninspiring.
They don't really spend time on it,
Yeah,
you know?
you don't want to enjoy living there, but maybe the beautiful buildings are for the warders and the guards that have to work there to make them feel less depressed about their job.
So it's a really beautiful building mixed with a painful past. So when we talk about something being painful, Painful. It's an adjective and it means something that causes a lot of pain and it hurts. Okay? So here we use it as like a painful past. So it's probably something that happened. It's used to describe something that happened a long time ago, and it creates a lot of sadness or pain for people. Yeah, for example, the Holocaust during World War II is a painful past for many people.
Indeed, yeah. So this painful past kind of relates to people maybe who were put in jail, maybe they didn't commit the crime.
For political reasons,
yes,
I'm guessing.
for political reasons or something like that. Separated from their family, so there is a painful past. The prisoners probably weren't treated so well, so there is some pain in there. And that kind of makes this trip more interesting, a bit more sort of okay, beautiful buildings, nice scenery, but there's something here to kind of appeal to the darker side of us as well. This kind of pain, this sense that you can get of what it was like to live in the jail, to be in jail. All right, well, that is the end of the article. We're not quite done for today, though, as it's now time for today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
Okay, our question relates to what we were talking about in our introduction. Would you like to visit an old prison? Why or why not?
I like to visit a lot of these places, but I'm actually kind of scared sometimes because I have a... Do you want to hear a ghost story?
I do.
Are you ready? Well, I visited a prison before in Vietnam, in Hanoi.
Ooh.
So, you know, Vietnam, like, historically, there was the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of political prisoners. And I went to this prison, and somehow, I don't know, I just felt this kind of uncomfortable chilliness.
Oh.
And I really felt really lightheaded when I was inside of the one area, and I got really scared and I ran out and I stood in the sun and I just thought, oh my gosh, I feel like maybe there's a lot of ghosts here.
That is.
So I'm kind of scared to visit prisons now. Yeah.
I would visit more prisons. I've been to, there's a famous one off the coast of San Francisco in the US called Alcatraz Island, one of the most
that's a very famous one.
prisons in the world. Yeah, it's on a rock. You might have seen in the movie, The Rock, but that's really interesting. It's got a good guided tour. You can listen to headphones that tell you, even talk to some of the old prisoners.
Oh, wow.
I also like the Tower of London in the UK because it's kind of been there for around 1,000 years. So there's a lot of history. And kings and princes have not only been imprisoned there, but have also been murdered there. So there's all sorts of interesting history in the Tower of London. So yeah, visit that if you get the chance. And visit Chiayi's Prison Museum too, and you'll see some cool stuff. Okay, that's the end of the article and the chat question for today. Thanks for listening, everyone. For English for You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Tiffany.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Locked up. Chiayi's Prison Museum. You approach the low white entrance with barbed wire to the left and right of it. Then you see a prisoner in striped clothing hanging from the wall. Don't worry, it's not a real person. Beyond the walls is a real prison, though. It's the Chiayi Prison Museum. Walk into the prison and you'll be greeted by a number of Japanese-style buildings. Slowly, you'll start to get a feel for life behind bars in Chiayi's old prison. You'll see the warden's room and the room where prisoners spoke with family from behind glass. Move along and you'll see self-made tools used for tattoos that prisoners gave each other. The Chiayi prison was opened in 1922, and it was turned into a historic spot in 2005. To get there, you can walk from Bayman Station on the Alishan Forest Railway. It's the mix of beautiful buildings and a painful past that makes it a spot worth visiting while in Chiayi.
Vocabulary Review.
Entrance. Do you know which door is the entrance to Theater 6? Prisoner. The prisoners in this area will only stay in jail for 1 or 2 years. Clothing. Make sure you pack some warm clothing. It gets quite cold here at night. Mix. Linda is perfect for the job. She has the right mix of experience and talent. Painful. Ethan doesn't like talking about his father's death. It brings back painful memories.